Okay, so I'll kind of admit this is actually probably my favorite one of the brainstorming models, particularly for a structured approach right here. And the reason I like it is it plays on a lot of themes in innovation. It plays on a lot of ways that we talk about kind of new concepts, and frankly, like, it's just sort of the most fun. So I think you're really going to enjoy it. It is sort of a meaty one. What I would say right here is applying this one well, you're going to find you can create a lot of ideas. I'd actually tell you in teaching at Georgetown, this is actually the approach that the students found was the most effective at generating lots of ideas. So if you're at a point where you're like, I want to come up with lots of ideas, I want to brainstorm, I'm really thinking about coming up with new ways to do this one, this is probably the place you're going to find the most lift right here, because it's pretty structured, it has some approaches to it, and we call it this for that, and let's dig into it a little further. Now, this for that is actually the best way of describing the mashup between customer personas that you're interested in and business models that you're interested in. So part of the reason for the homework for the last two was identify the 15 to 20 or so customer personas you found interesting, and 5 to 10 or so business models you found interesting, is because now what we're going to do is we're going to figure out the intersection between those ones and see what ideas emerge from that one. That's why it's called this for that, is we're going to apply it in that way. Now, this is really best for someone who says, like, I have to come up with an idea, or I'm structuring this as an idea. This can be a really good one for entrepreneurs who are tackling a new space, a new problem, whatever it is, to get really structured about it. It's less of one of those ones that you sort of just do on the side. You sort of need to invest the time and see what emerges from it. The first four were really ones that you could do on your own, you could be brainstorming, but this one requires a bit of work and requires a bit of sort of structure to make it actually succeed right here. So if you're at a place where you're saying, I need to come up with a new idea, or I have a team that's tasked with developing new ideas, this is sort of the way to do it right here. The shorthand of this one is the mashup, right? We're actually kind of going to mash up these two concepts and sort of see what emerges right here. And so if you're familiar with mashups of music, this is sort of a good way to think of it, is we're going to mash up two things that we like and sort of see if something better emerges from it right there. So the key things that we're combining, right, again, we're combining on one hand business models, and on the other hand customer personas. And that's really the key behind this one, is we want to figure out what happens when we look at the problem, when we constrain ourselves to matching up a business model we like and a customer persona, and sort of see, does that spark something in us that could be an idea right here. So it's the business model for the customer persona we have right there, or the this for that. And the this is the business model, and the that is the customer persona. So, business model for customer persona. And this is oftentimes something that we use an awful lot. Again, we use this for shorthand oftentimes in the startup game. So an example here is, let's just say that you're really interested in the Airbnb model, which is, again, we're going to say Airbnb, but really what it is sort of a sharing economy transaction model is what it is. So sharing economy transaction model for pet lovers. That's what we're going to think about. How do you wind up thinking of those two? So again, Airbnb for pet lovers is sort of the way you'd say it. Well, actually, that's a real company now called Rover. And the crazy part about the story is it was actually started by a friend of mine named Greg Gottesman. And we were at an event called Startup Weekend. And it's basically this event where anyone can pitch any idea they want, and they can wind up kind of using the resources, the people over the weekend to work on it. And so Greg Gottesman, who's a venture capitalist, he was actually on the board of Startup Weekend with me. So we became really good friends. He said, listen, I really don't like bringing my dog to the kennel. I really feel like I don't have choices. I would love to basically have a friend who I could bring my dog to and to stay when I'm going out of town. And so that was the original pitch. And he actually called, originally it was A Place for Rover, was this much longer name. And they worked on it over the weekend. And turned out like they were onto something. They've been onto something so big now. They turned this into a real company, and now they're on track to do well over $100 million of revenue, and on track to go public at some point soon. But again, it was a pure mashup right there. Greg originally talked about this as Airbnb for my dog, right? That was the idea, and he probably wasn't the first one to say that one. I'm almost sure of it. There's actually another company out there that does the same thing, but Rover is one of the dominant ones, and it did sort of come out of this, business model customer persona pair right there that we talk about right there. So as we think about this for your own process right there, you've already gone through this process of identifying business models and customer personas. You're actually going to mash those ones up in the same way. And The approach really comes down to three things in this one. And again, this is a little more structured, so you're going to feel like it's a little more, it's going to be 1, 2, 3 sort of approach right here. But the reason we'll do this one is this will help you generate 100 ideas very quickly if you do this one the right way. So step 1 is frame it. Step 2 is we generate the ideas, and step 3 is we narrow it down. That's sort of the way that we'll go from tons and tons of ideas into sort of the ones that we actually want to pick right there. So, this is the place where you pull out your old handy-dandy Excel spreadsheet right here. And so the reason you're going to do that one is that's actually where we're going to do most of our brainstorming, is we're going to use this as a framework. Now, you may find you want to use another similar tool, but it's important here to sort of actually use some kind of a structured framework like this one. I've seen other people do the same thing where they do it on a whiteboard, and so they have, as long as they have sort of a column in a row, they can do these things, it'll work well. But for you, I would say pull out an Excel spreadsheet right now. So if you can, open up your laptop, keep this window open right here, and then on the other screen or on the other side of it, go ahead and open up an actual Excel spreadsheet. From there, this is where we're going to actually mimic the this for that approach right here. So we're going to basically do the Airbnb for pet lovers or pets, and we're going to do it in a structural way. So pull back out your list of the 5 to 10 business models you really like, and the 15 to 20 customer personas broken down by B2B, B2C, or sort of industries you have right there. And again, what you see when you look at those ones is there's sort of a bunch of things on the piece of paper right there. And what we're going to use that sort of combination is to sort of create sort of every combination of those ones to sort of see if it sparks ideas. So what you're going to do is you're going to basically create a canvas like this to sort of do it. And down the first column, column A, you're going to list out all of those business models that you like right there. You're going to list them all out right there, and all of the customer personas that you really like. List them all down there. So everything from the B2C ones, the B2B ones, any sort of general industries you have right there. Then across the top, you're going to actually be listing out the business models that you thought you liked, that you were connecting with, the ones that were interesting right there. And what you have is effectively sort of the place you're going to play. Now what you can see is as you start to go down that first column B right there, you're going to see that if you look at that model and you start to look at every one of the customers right there, each one of those represents a this for that. That's what you're combining. The model right there for these different ones, for nurses, for pet owners, for whatever it is right there. That's the process. And now, it feels okay, that's pretty simple right there. The reality is that it's going to take a minute to go through. And the reason it is because you're going to have to really be thoughtful in sort of a deep way about what you actually know the problems are for each of those customer personas, and sort of what are the approaches behind each of those business models right there. So the framing it right there is really combining at the top all of the business models, and down the side right here, all of the customer personas that you might have. And what I would urge you to do as you go through it is actually start to make sure before you really dive in that you know pretty well about each of the customer personas you've thought about enough, and each of the business models you've thought about in a pretty meaningful way. Now, this approach is designed specifically to help you generate 100+ ideas. So we're going to help fill up your fish tank fast. That's sort of the goal right here. But it's going to take some time. This is one of those ones that may take you a little bit of time. And I promise you it's totally doable. I have done this on my students, undergrads and MBAs, for the last 5 years. And every time when I tell them this assignment, I get these looks on the faces like, how could you do that? You're the worst professor ever. You're going to ruin my week. And they come back the following week and a half or week later and they say, that was actually pretty effective. We appreciate that one. So it'll work really well. I promise you'll be able to come up with at least 100 ideas. Because really what we're doing is we're going to sort of simplify this entire thing. And I want to go back to something I said earlier in this program here is, remember, it's not about coming up with great ideas. It's just coming up with ideas that you find to be interesting, intriguing, that you can take through. So sort of the mashups right there may not yield magic at each time, but it's going to be a fish. You're going to see a lot of fishes right there. Eventually you'll find one you really like right there. Now, as you think about how to do it, what you should be looking for is generating ideas that you can sort of pitch as an idea. So these are some examples of some that I've actually kind of come up with in this exercise right here. And what you'll see is that sort of we've got the business model, we've got the sort of customer persona right there that we have, and then the idea. And the last part in there that I've added is sort of does this relate to something for you? Does this actually kind of connect with something that you might actually want to do, to build, to go after right here? So these are some examples right here that I think are interesting. Take a look at all of them. I'll kind of stop right here so you can read them. But what they are is they're just mashups of those things. So for an example is could you take someone who's an aspiring, director or actor and sort of use the sort of Airbnb-ish model, the collaborative consumption model right there of sort of sharing assets. So the idea would be is to take someone who's an aspiring director, that one, and sort of say, could they wind up renting the equipment from a successful movie studio in the off hours? So they could potentially film their movie late at night or whatever it is right there. Is that something they could do? Or let's just say that you're someone who's interested in film as well, and you want to sort of figure out a way to build a script writing business right there. So maybe it's to say, I'm going to wind up doing, sort of community-based collaborative script writing right there. That could be something that you could do. So these are all sort of ideas that are mashups right there. Again, they don't have to be great or perfect. They just sort of are what they are. And the process of this one to do it is you're going to go through every one of these ones and try as best as you can to come up with ideas in a place that you think you could. So it's not one of those things that you'll do and crank through it right there. But what I would urge you to do is either start to go down one column all the way or go across one row all the way and really sort of kind of figure out how to deeply understand that model, understand that customer. And the reason I usually tell people to start with the first column and go down is sort of once you understand the model pretty well, then you can apply that to various different customers. The this stays the same and the that changes each time. So it goes from nurses to pet owners to real estate agents to whatever it is right there. So start at the top and go down. You're going to find that each one, particularly the first one, may take you 5 to 10 minutes to sort of go through the first kind of column all the way through for each square. The reason is you're sort of learning about the customer on that one, you're learning about the business model concurrently, and so it may take you a little bit of time to sort of think through it, but spend the time and see what you come up with. Don't judge. Remember, this is a way to come up with 100 ideas pretty quickly. It's going to take you some time, and so ask these questions as you're going through it, right? All right, how would this fit? Is there something that can make this customer's life better? Is there something that is causing them problems, grief, stress? Do they depend upon something? What do they care about? Who's involved in these sorts of things? What are existing things they do? Ask yourself these questions. If you get stuck on one, maybe search a little bit, see if you can find anything that way. Again, don't overthink it. Your goal is to come up with whatever crazy, interesting ideas you may find. And what you'll find too is that you'll be drawn to some right away. You're like, oh, this is an interesting one. Other places you may feel it's hard. Not everyone loves this, right? I will tell you that. This is one of those ones that can feel somewhat structured. And so if you're not in a place where you're looking for a structured process, this may not be that one. But I would urge you to try it a little bit. It can be fun, and I'm going to share some ideas about how to make it more fun as well. This is actually something that I've done, and it actually can be a party game. And so I know it sort of seems crazy, but this is one of these ones that if you gather a group of people and you don't tell them you're looking for startup ideas or looking for innovation ideas, but you tell them you're playing a game, they can find it pretty fun. So imagine what you do is you put a bunch of sort of, startups in a hat, and you put a bunch of customer personas in a hat, ones you like, and then you have people draw one out and they pitch the startup idea. And that's the way that it goes. That, as long as you're recording it or taking notes, you can take those that information and go with it right there. So if you're looking for a way to make this fun, I'll tell you, I did this with my in-laws, and they actually thought it was a lot more fun than they realized. I was actually collecting the information and using it so I could get inspired right there. But it could be a fun way to make this engaging. Do it with your coworkers, do it with your staff. It can be a good way to come up with a lot of ideas. I tell people, though, that to really, really do this well, it's probably going to take you 10 to 20 hours. It really just is. You're going to need to dive in. You're going to want to go deep on these things. If you have 15 or so customer personas and 8 or so models, it's just a big number that you're looking through. And really, I think part of the process of it is this for that thing will get you really thoughtful right there. So that's the way that we do this for a lot of companies out there, right? You hear oftentimes people saying, I'm trying to build, the eBay for machinery, right? And particularly it's a way that we do it because it simplifies the concept. But really why it works so well is it takes the business model, which is important, and mashes it up with the customer persona. And so it really does sort of focus the mind a little bit on that one right there. So this is, again, it's my favorite. takes a little bit of work. It is very, very good if you're doing structured ideation. So if you're not in a place where you're thinking about, hey, I don't have time to generate 100 ideas, break it down, take off a little component of it, maybe pick, one column you're going to do or whatever it is, but really try it out. And the reason I say to try it out is because when you realize there's only a few business models and a few customer personas that you're interested in, it can actually help you start to be able to sort of think about the world in business models and customer personas. And so you may start to see things a little differently, saying like, oh, I didn't realize like this Airbnb model could be interested and applied to this, or turns out that this model for subscription SaaS model could be applied in this way or that or the other one. So use it, try it out, and trust me, you'll find that it can be pretty fun. I would tell you, if you've got a holiday coming up, if you've got friends coming over for a drinking event, put away the cards and pull out the business models and the customer personas and sort of see what magic ensues. So I hope that one helps. And again, we'll be on to sort of more favorite ones in the next ones after this.